It's Jonny Slick here. I've got a couple more questions. Today we're going to be talking about gaining muscle mass. So I have two questions that I'll cover quickly here because they're kind of similar to each other in terms of gaining muscle mass. But the first one comes from my friend Pat. Pat asks, why am I small? He's asking about himself. He's probably asking about me too, but it's kind of the same answer. So the reason why smaller people are small, a lot of it has to do with genetics. So normally if you're a small person, it's going to be harder for you to gain muscle mass just because of the way your metabolism works. So smaller people or normally leaner people, we have an easier time keeping our body fat low, but we also have a harder time gaining muscle. But the great thing about exercise and nutrition is that you can kind of change the way that some of your genes express themselves. So you can't really change your genetics to an extent, but you can change the way that they work sometimes. So the first thing I would look at if someone was trying to gain muscle mass would be, what is your diet? Honestly, that's the most important thing that I've found when it comes to gaining muscle mass, is make sure your diet is in check. You need to make sure that you're eating enough carbohydrates so that you're fueling your body for your workouts and you're not having to use your own body fat or your own muscle mass when you're doing any type of strength training workout as fuel. So you need the carbs for fuel. You need a good amount of healthy fats, especially saturated fats like from coconut oil or grass-fed meats. You need those fats so that your body can produce testosterone, produce growth hormone, help you sleep better, just have everything functioning better as you're trying to gain muscle mass. So fat helps with the hormones, carbs help with the fuel, and then everyone normally knows that you need to be eating more protein just to gain more muscle mass. So that one's kind of the typical one. People normally just think, oh, I need to eat more protein. You really need to eat more everything, more carbs and more fats. So a lot of people do okay on the protein side, but they're not eating near enough fat or near enough carbs to be gaining quality muscle mass. So after you look at the diet, I would take a look at your program. Your lifting program should be based around big movements like squats, deadlifts, bench press, overhead press, pull-ups or lat pull-downs, and any type of rowing movement. So big compound movements using multiple joints will give you the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to muscle mass growth. Just because when you work big muscles, especially your legs on squats and deadlifts, you're going to be releasing a lot more testosterone, a lot more growth hormone, so you have the more potential to grow, especially if you're starting your workout with those big movements. And then after that, going into your accessory movements, curls, press downs, flies, lateral raises, leg extensions, leg curls, glute ham raises, low back stuff. All of that stuff you would put in after you have the meat of your program, which is those big lifts. The big lift should be somewhere anywhere between 5 and 10 repetitions, depending on what works with you, what works for you, and I'll get to that in a second. Whereas the accessory exercises, probably in the 8 to 12 rep range, maybe a little higher if you're doing a burnout set or something like that. But working those multiple rep ranges, going heavy on some things, lighter on other things, will allow you to fatigue different types of muscle fibers, so that you have the potential for all three different, or well, two, kind of like three different muscle fiber types, that you're able to challenge all of them so that you can have some growth potential, because they do have to be under enough stress in order to grow. So that's why, if you're small, that's why you're small. The good news is you can do something to change it. So I actually found the biggest thing that helped me, I went from about 145 whenever I started here at the Y about 5 years ago, and I weigh about 173 now. Biggest thing for me was cutting out cardio. I used to run a lot. I still do more high intensity cardio just for health benefits, but when I'm trying to gain weight, you really have to cut back or cut out the cardio, just because you really can't spare burning those calories. So a lot of people who are small, it's because they're doing too much cardio and they need to take a break from that to gain some muscle mass. But you need to find that balance between health and performance and physique and things like that are important to people, but just make sure you have everything in balance. Second question comes from my friend Frank, who's actually put on a lot of quality weight himself recently on a bodybuilding program, but he was asking if high volume workouts, so we're talking like 25 to 30 sets of different exercises during your workout, or high intensity, this is like 12 to 16 total sets during your workout, which one of those is better for muscle growth? Well, like I said before, gaining muscle mass is all about putting the muscle under sufficient tension for sufficient time. This is why most bodybuilding programs will have people within like the 8 to 12 rep range for 4 sets or something like that. It's not so cut and dry though, because everyone is different. Some people respond better. I personally respond better to heavier weights and lower repetitions when I'm trying to gain weight. Some people do better with higher reps. So it kind of all depends on how your body best grows. So I would say you really need to try out both methods. Try a high volume workout that's going to have maybe less repetitions but a lot more sets. I mean, there's some programs that are like 10 sets of 5 or 10 sets of 4 on squat or something like that. And there are other programs, higher intensity. There's a program where you do a 120 rep set on back squat after a couple warm-ups. So that would be a very intense set, but not near as much volume because the total reps are only 20, whereas the total reps on a 10 by 5 are 50. So you have to play around. Higher volume normally means you're going to be pretty sore. Higher intensity a lot of times means less repetitions, but it's just going to be a lot harder to get through those sets. I just have found with higher volume, it's more time under tension, so I do better with those. Plus, I've never had an issue with like body weight movements or lightweight things. Those things I feel like those are kind of easier for me. So I feel like I'm able to use, my body mechanics to my advantage on those. Whereas when I'm under a heavy weight, I really have to use every muscle fiber I have and really solid form and solid breathing techniques and really focus up when I'm moving something heavy. So I find I get more out of it whenever I'm doing something heavier. But if you wanted to experiment with both, with a high volume program, with a high intensity program, I would try one and stick with it for at least 6 weeks. Give it 6 to 8 weeks to see how your body responds before you jump around. I think that the biggest problem people have is they hop programs. So they'll try something for 2 or 3 weeks, and if they're not seeing something instantly, or they're feeling tired with it, or they think it's going to be boring if they stick it out for another 6 weeks. When you hop programs like that, you can hop around programs by doing a different program every 2 weeks for 6 months and not make any progress. But if you stick to a couple solid 8 to 12 week programs that are well designed, you're going to see a lot more progress that way. So I mean, there's a lot of science out there that can support both of those, high volume and high intensity. I say just personally find what works for you, but ease into both of them. If you're going really high intensity, like a 20 rep squat program, that can really tear you up. So maybe start with a lighter weight than you know that you'd be able to do. And when it comes to higher volume, don't go after that first workout. When you're doing like 10 sets of something, you've really got to lighten the weight up. So either way, kind of ramp into that program, give it some time, stick it out, see if it works for you, and then change some stuff after that if it's not working for you. But if you guys have any more questions, you can just comment below or hit me up on Facebook. My name is Jonny Slick, Jonny without an H, Jonny. Or you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Jonny Slick 89. And you can leave me a question there, and I'll have that post up for you guys sometime next week if I get it in from you. So thanks a lot, and good luck getting those gains, Pat and Frank. See you guys.